Well, hello everybody. This is Truth Seeker here, and it's been a while since I made my last video. It's been a tough year for everybody. It's been a tough year for us included. Not only have we had the COVID to contend with, but also had quite a few circumstances concerning my ticker, and got them all squared away, and everything seems hunky-dory, even though I've got an electronic device inside of me now. Never really thought about ever having something like that. They call it a defibrillator. But it also does pacemaking work. Pretty cool stuff. The technology they got, the battery lasts 10, 12 years, something like that. And they can keep dibs on me, on tabs on me, make sure that even if I keel over, at least my heart will continue to beat. So, anyway, yeah, it's been an exciting number of months. I have to admit that we've been absorbed not only in health matters, but we, like many people, have found that there are circumstances created by the COVID pandemic that we've had to confront and help with family members. Our daughter in particular, who's a teacher and going to school at night, so she's got her hands full. We've got a 5.5-year-old boy, our grandson, whom we're doing remote kindergarten with in our basement. I've got my office upstairs working. I still work full time, and my son-in-law, he's busy at his job with motorcycles. It's a kind of a retail business, so he's in contact with a lot of people. And so that combination there has really created some concern, given all of the news about COVID-19 and its potential effects for especially people in our age category. And no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet. I got things that I want to do. So even though I may not be working in the next couple years, I certainly will be taking something up. I'm considering. I don't know, maybe picking up a adjunct position teaching calculus or something of that nature. I think there's a real need in the area of education, and I'd love to keep myself active in that way. But we've had a lot of things happen politically. I think I hear some activity going. Well, it was just a bunch of snow falling. We had yet another snowfall today. Politics have not been a minor thing going on in this country, and the one observation I'm going to make, because I know that this is a highly controversial subject, and we also have a a great deal of a number of people who believe in many of the conspiracy theories that have been circulating, especially among the Republican sector of our society. But the distraction that it's created and the instability in our country is notable because it has a very strong impact on our lives, on what how we live it. For the first time, I was just talking with a friend of mine earlier today that 30 years ago we never really, it didn't matter. 40 years ago, it didn't matter whether there was a Republican or a Democrat in the presidency because it didn't reach down into your life. I mean, your daily life was going to be pretty much the same. But no longer is it the case. I mean, just take the response to COVID, for example. We wouldn't be taking on a 5.5-year-old for the last 6 months in our basement doing school remote kindergarten education if we had taken a different track on the COVID response and gotten to work earlier on taking a counteractive measures. So it does have an impact on our daily lives, more so than at any other time in our history. And so it is important. It's important to follow these things that are happening in government are not minor. They do reach into our daily lives, our personal lives, and so these are things that need to be followed, that add a complexity to our life that never existed before. And but one of the things that I noted, especially on that absolutely surreal day when we saw 1,000 people banging at the doors of Congress on July 6th, running rampant, defecating in the building like animals, breaking glass, people died. It was an awful day for the United States. And one thing that I noticed while we were riveted to the television set watching things crumble were the signs that these insurrectionists were carrying. Don't tread on me. I mean, they were trying to act as if they were patriots. And just one interesting thing that this has really sparked an interest in my heritage, political heritage, that I've never really taken interest in before, but it made me go back to our Constitution, what it means, the rights granted under the Constitution and what they mean to us individually, and the Declaration of Independence. Now, the interesting thing about the Declaration of Independence is it's not just a petition of severance. It wasn't a notice that we are no longer part of the British Empire, but it is more of a document that says when is an insurrection justified. And in fact, that was a very important question by the framers, because here they were separating from the greatest government, the strongest government in the world at the time, Great Britain. The sun never set on the British Empire. And so the founding fathers, they just didn't take this matter lightly. So they were They were very carefully crafting a document that stated what conditions an insurrection is warranted. And what they came up with was really emblematic of the Enlightenment period, where they were very concerned during that time of, what is the right of an individual. We're born into this world, and what are the rights? And so the only time in which there is a justification for an insurrection against the government is when that government is violating the rights that what Jefferson called self-evident truths, which are the right of everybody to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the other self-evident truth that we're all born equal. Of course, the language of the day probably wouldn't cut it today. They said all men are born are created equal, but the message is clear. Men, women, everyone. There is nobody who is inherently born superior. There is no Übermensch. We all are human. We all, despite our various characteristics, whether or not, I couldn't draw a stick man, yet my daughters are both artistically talented beyond scope. That doesn't make them superior to me. That means they have a talent. We're all equal, and we're all born equal with certain what they called unalienable rights. And these unalienable rights, they're non-negotiable. And those rights are not rights to carry a gun. That's negotiable. In fact, that's an amendment. The First Amendment, free speech, that's a negotiable right. That's an amendment to the Constitution. And I think that the framers did their best at creating a constitution that guaranteed at least the greatest part of the population access to these unalienable rights. But the unalienable rights are fundamental, they're self-evident, and they're indelible. They can't be changed, and that's the rights that I just mentioned. And only under those conditions is an insurrection warranted, in fact, obligated, according to the founders. So that, again, is the unalienable right of all men are created equal, the unalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But again, it's not the pursuit of happiness at the expense of another's. It's the pursuit of happiness in a manner such that it doesn't infringe upon somebody else's right to pursue happiness. So, these are things that are given qualifications that are associated with that. Now, getting back to the day of the insurrection and why it was an insurrection, why it was illegal, is because, first off, it did not meet those conditions that were set down by Jefferson, Adams, and Franklin in the Declaration of Independence, which is a far more fundamental statement of principle than the Constitution. Everybody talks about the Constitution, but the Declaration of Independence gets down to the most fundamental of our rights. And they're non-negotiable, not amendable. And that's the interesting thing about the Declaration of Independence. It's not amendable because these are rights that we're entitled with by simply having been born And so these individuals, just like it was in the days of the Civil War, Lincoln didn't rely so much on the Constitution as the test of whether or not the secession of the states was a legal matter. It was the Declaration of Independence itself. Did they meet that test? They did not, because none of those inalienable rights were being denied any individual who claimed to cede from the Union. Now, ironically and conversely, these very same individuals who claimed the right to cede from the Union without meeting the test of the Declaration of Independence were not permitting the self-evident truths, the self-evident unalienable rights of 4 million Americans that had been stolen from their native land and brought over here and sold and put to work as property. And those poor individuals were the ones that were being denied their unalienable rights. And so that was what was really illegal. And in fact, had the black population rebelled, it would have been a justifiable rebellion, and they would have been the patriots if they had rebelled against those that were suppressing them, at least under the test, under the criteria of the Union. And I think that's the irony that Lincoln picked up very, very adeptly in the Gettysburg Address when he said, whether this nation will long endure, because men have a tendency to grab power, to infringe, to idealize this concept of an Übermensch. I mean, Nietzsche, his whole philosophy was that there were some that were born superior. And anybody who's adopted that idea is only looking at things superficially, because, again, our individual talents, intellect, or otherwise, talents otherwise, artistic or whatever they may be, doesn't make us superior to our neighbor. And so we're all born with the same rights. And that was being denied, and that was being violated by the peculiar institution that was being battled and fought over during the Civil War. And that's why those thousands of people who were in Washington on January 6th, even more so, never met that test. They were not patriots. What BS that was by calling them patriots. Patriots to whom? Patriots to what? You got to have a basis to be a patriot too, and that basis is the philosophy and the understanding that all men are created equal. And that was not being denied anyone who attacked the Capitol that day. So I think that's an important, and I think everybody we hear so much today about the role of the Constitution in this insurrection, but I think even more so, there was a violation of the Declaration of Independence, which is a document that did not change. Now, when you stop and you look at American history, the Declaration was made in 1776. We really ceded from England as a colony, declared our independence. Really, we began a war of revolution in 1775 and made the Declaration in 1776 as a legal statement, more for the world. But then there were a number of years through which there was a crisis in the United States as to what form of government we were going to adopt. Are we going to be a loose confederation of states with independent taxes and tariffs and such that exist between nations? Or are we going to be a unified nation? And that was settled in 1789 when Congress met and resolved the U.S. Constitution and developed the Republican democracy that has existed these past 200 plus years. So what I think is now important, once we understand this setting, this framework, what was the role of religion in this matter that we just experienced on July 6th? There were a lot of American flags being held that day, but there were other banners. And there was the "Don't Tread on Me" banner, which alludes back to the revolutionary days, unjustifiedly so, but that's the implication there. But there were an awful lot of "Jesus Saves" banners, and religion played a very strong role in that insurrection. In particular, the evangelical sector. And when you look at some of the statistics that you can find, Pew Research and such, the part of the Republican Party that more strongly revolts against the established order is indeed the evangelical sector. They play a very strong role in politics, and that began sometime in the 1980s with this idea of the moral majority, the silent majority, this idea that was promoted by the Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson and all of these mega preachers that arose during that period, encouraging this hitherto silent sector into political action. And it's taken these many years for it to evolve into something radical. And that's the point, that things that we don't think could be dangerous can morph, can evolve into something radical, and that's what happened and is happening. It's still happening in this country. The way of life that the evangelicals espouse, this morality that they say that they adhere to, biblical morality, they see slipping away. They're opposed to homosexuals. They're opposed to the science that says homosexuality is natural. They oppose climate warming. They oppose the science of climate warming. They oppose vaccination. These are the people. This is the base of people who take these extreme positions. These are the people that are also more likely to do homeschooling because they will not accept evolution as an accepted scientific theory. And so they see science and they see their world slipping away as we inch our way through the years to broadening the rights of individuals who have, up until this point, had to hide in the shadows of our society because they were being persecuted and prejudiced against, and so the Black Lives Matters, the LGBTQ. I can't remember it all the initials that keeps getting bigger, but their rights are being recognized. The right of these people to exist and to live happy and normal lives, unimpeded, without persecution, is gradually being accepted, especially in more in the urban areas of our country, the more enlightened areas of our country, and they see this slipping away, and this ultra conservative segment of our society is becoming even more conservative and more reactionary. And so I suspect that we're going to see more activity in this regard as people see what they believe in a world that is slipping into an increasing sense of immorality. And it's all based on a book that can very readily be contested. I mean, when you look at Genesis alone, the science readily shows that it's impossible that the earth and the universe and everything that we see came into being in 7 24-hour days. It just doesn't make sense. So and most of the Bible and its interpretation, again, it's an archaic and ancient book that can be disproved and readily contested, and only blind adherence, which is not rational. That's the only way in which to believe it. There's no reconciliation. I mean, I tried that for years, and that was part of the we call that what's that? We call that the cognitive dissonance, where our rational brain fights against what we've been taught to be the truth for our entire lives, and we run into this clash psychologically and emotionally, and it really wreaks havoc upon us internally. But when you see that the Bible itself is the source of the problem, because blind adherence is not the way human beings are built to naturally. We need evidence. That's the way we are. I mean, that's how our brain developed. As a creature on this planet, we survived not because of our physical wherewithal. We survived because we had this mental capacity that increased, and the ability to work things out and come to conclusions using rational thought and evidence, and so and testing things over and over and over again, so what comes to us naturally is something that we're denying when we wholesale accept the Bible. And I'm sorry, that's the case. I mean, we have to close our eyes if we believe in such things as a man walking on water and other things that just don't make sense, miracles, people rising from the dead, and other things that the Bible promotes. We don't have to struggle against it any longer, because the Bible, once you wrap your head around the idea that the Bible itself is the source of the trouble, then it's not so hard to reject it and to live life in a rational, reasonable way. And that brings us next to another point. Any religion can be radicalized, and this is, we can't fool ourselves into thinking that religions, some religions are just so outrageous that we can't believe it. In fact, the more outrageous something is, the more potential I believe that it has to become radicalized, because adherents require even less evidence to accept it than more conventional beliefs. So I think that's something that we should be wary of, because the sleeping giant, I never thought, and I know the way we were taught when I was growing up, we never conceived of an insurrection that could topple our government. So anything can become radicalized. We see a major party falling apart today because of radicalization that's transpiring within it, and that radicalization is as a result of the religious, the ultra religious segment of that party. So we Bible students and Jehovah's Witnesses, as unlikely as it might seem. This is where I might even contend with Stephen Hassan, because he distinguishes between cults that have the potential to be dangerous and cults that don't. And I think all cults have the potential to become dangerous. And it just takes the right set of circumstances and the right conditions, and this radicalization can occur. And all you need is a charismatic leader, somebody to foment and stir things up, and people, the conditions in society have to be such that people are in an unstable set of circumstances, like 2020 with the COVID crisis and its disruption in our lives, and you throw in a lot of chaos and confusion, and you've got a group of people ready to accept anything that makes their world seem sensible, and that's why you have these conspiracy theories that are so outrageous that people accept them anyway, regardless. So, yes, radicalization is something that can occur, and it can occur with any given sect, any given philosophical belief. And in any group of adherents to these ideologies, especially in the realm of religion and politics, because these are areas that touch people in an emotional way, and also it's a way of looking at the world. And if you think that the world that you know and feel comfortable with is slipping away, you may be vulnerable towards accepting a more or an increasingly radical viewpoint to preserve what makes you feel safe. So those are the lessons I think that I've kind of brought away for myself in observing all of the craziness that has taken place over the last 6 months, and I think these it helps to understand, it helps to think about these things and to make some sense out of them, analyze it to the best of our ability, so that, if we don't revisit history, if we don't look back and try to understand how these things occurred, it makes it inevitable for us to experience them again. That's that old saying, that old adage about those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. And that is why we need to take a look at these things and confront these things. And on a personal level, it's important. That's why counseling is so helpful, because if we avoid looking at ourselves and what caused whatever aspect of us to be dysfunctional, then we're bound to continue to feel the pain of dysfunction again and again. And that's why therapy is so useful. Cognitive therapy, it teaches us to look at the world in a different way and to react differently because we understand things better. So anyway, I hope to be online a little bit more frequently. I think my next video, I'd like to take a look at some of the statistics. I haven't yet looked at the 2020 statistics for the Watchtower. I think that is always interesting. I think one of the interesting aspects of that is that these statistics have been done in a COVID year, and it'd be interesting to take a look at how the numbers may have gone up when you look at the hours of witnessing door-to-door decrease, because they had to decrease over the course of the last year. So anyway, this is Truth Seeker wishing you all well, and it's good to see you again. And again, we'll be talking a little bit more frequently in the future. So take care.